Hi, I'm Paul Beckwith. The term geoengineering is a very loaded term. People arch up their back and immediately say they're against it, but what I say is that people that say they're against geoengineering don't understand what is going to happen under abrupt climate change. They are willing to just let the planet continue changing as it is and have abrupt, wrenching changes to society and food supply and everything else that we expect on our planet. So also the word geoengineering has been poisoned by so-called chemtrailers who think that there's some spraying of poisonous chemicals as population control or whatever other reason. You know, let's stick to the reality of the situation, please. Let's talk about dividing it up into CDR, carbon dioxide removal, and SRM, solar radiation management. Like I say again, carbon dioxide removal is removing CO2 from the atmosphere and or the ocean. So it's over 405 parts per million in the atmosphere. It's very high levels in the ocean, causing the pH of the open ocean to be about 8.05 when it was 8.2 before. So the ocean's acidified by about 30 or 40% in the last four decades or so. So CDR is not cutting down trees, planting more trees, stimulating phytoplankton growth in the ocean so there's more capture of CO2. How do we do this? People have tried seeding with iron because that's a missing nutrient or a deficient nutrient in large parts of the ocean, and that worked spectacularly and needs to be studied in more detail. But even better than that is just putting in mechanical systems to bring up seawater from about 200-meter depth up to the surface, because that water is cold and it's got abundant nutrients and would stimulate phytoplankton growth at the surface and would basically stimulate the entire food chain in the regions where it was performed. And this is just very simple mechanical devices, for example, wave-driven, that could do this. So this is, there's about a dozen companies that are looking at taking CO2 directly from the atmosphere. So artificial trees, if you like. There's other methods of grinding up minerals like olivine, which naturally through weathering processes remove CO2 from the atmosphere, but at a very slow rate. So if they were ground up into fine particles and placed on pathways, on surfaces or in the ocean, then they would capture large amounts of CO2. We have to look at all these methods and actually implement them. We can't just study things. We've done enough research. We need to implement things. Also, solar radiation management can be as simple as taking seawater and pumping it through nozzles, creating a fine spray of salt particles, which water vapor condenses on, so creating low-level marine clouds. And the smaller the particles in the cloud, or the droplets of water in the clouds, the higher the reflectivity they are. So, for example, to cool the Arctic, we need to cover the dark seawater in the summer with low-level marine clouds to cool the water, to try to restore the sea ice so that we don't get a blue ocean event, or to cool the ocean currents that are carrying heat up into the Arctic through these methods of marine cloud brightening. Also, another solar radiation management method that's often talked about is using sulfur dioxide in the stratosphere to cause cooling. I wrote a blog years ago called The Anthropogenic Arctic Volcano about this very technique. The problem is it causes cooling in the Arctic, say. It would cause cooling in the summer, but would possibly cause warming in the winter. It wouldn't get as cold there. So we need to seriously consider using sulfur dioxide in the lower atmosphere, in the troposphere, to reflect things in the summer when we applied it. The thing about in the lower atmosphere deployment is it's washed out quickly within a week or so. So if we stop the source of providing this material in the lower atmosphere in the Arctic, it would be gone within a week or two, and we could have much more controllable experiments. So if you're against these things, then I encourage you to study up on how quickly the planet is changing and what is coming down the pipes if we don't do anything. Because there's no point in being against something. I mean, we're not doing this for fun. We're doing this because I think we need to do it, in fact, because we need to stabilize the climate system. If we don't deploy these things, then we're like throwing in the towel and saying, oh, we can't do anything. And that frame of viewpoint will be self-fulfilling, because if we don't do anything and we go to a completely ice-free Arctic, we're going to rocket up to a much larger temperature. Global average temperatures will be much higher. This is what happens under abrupt climate change. It's happened in the past. So we need to deploy CDR, which I call leg 3 of my bar stool analogy. We need to cool the Arctic, which is leg 2 of my bar stool analogy. And we also need to slash fossil fuel emissions to 0 as soon as possible. And the world is basically focused on leg 1 of the bar stool. Some people are starting to talk about leg 3, but almost nobody's talking about the other leg. We need all 3 legs. You can't have a bar stool balancing on 1 leg or 2 legs. You need 3 legs. This is what we need to do to restore the climate, and we need to do this at the scale of larger than any project humanity's ever undertaken. Much larger than the Manhattan Project in the World War II to develop the bomb. Much larger than the Marshall Plan after World War II to rebuild Japan. Much larger than anything we've faced before, but it will revitalize economies. It will give countries a global connected purpose to stabilize the climate system so that we have a decent future. Please go to my website, paulbeckwith.net. Please have a look at many of my videos. I self-fund this work. Please consider a financial donation. If you go to my website, on the taskbar on the far right, there's a Please Donate button. Thank you for your time.